I hope you're enjoying lunch, and I know you would like to continue, please do, but we will resume the program in the interest of time. I should have said with greater emphasis how grateful we are for you abiding the COVID protocols. They have, of course, a lot of consequences on our daily life. Staff here at the AT&T Center doing their best to make that as minimal as possible, so thank you to them. And of course, we want to have this in person, so we're going to continue to be well behaved, and you know how hard that is for me. So you can be your brother's keeper. But that aside, it also has a consequence on schedule, and so we're going to do our best to, as we always do, keep the trains running on time. All of that to say that 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity, of course, to think about comments for today's lunch. And I don't know in my lifetime if there's been another period when the news changes as much as it does from 1 hour to the next. And so I always get some help from our wonderful staff writer, Roy Maynard. Please give him a round of applause because Roy's awesome. If you read our daily canon, Roy's the guy to thank primarily, although that's a team effort. But he always takes my Louisiana English and puts it into something that sounds okay. And so I've really been praying for those people in elective office who have to guide us through this. We're going to hear soon from Lieutenant Governor Patrick. We know that we have Representative James Frank here. Sorry, James, my favorite member of the legislature, because he's my state House rep, Terry Wilson, is here. So Terry, thanks for being here. And I know some other members of the House are still conducting activities at the Capitol during, again, this crazy time. And I think Senators Hall and Taylor are here as well. So a round of applause for them, although I haven't seen them. And if you're a legislator and I missed you or haven't gotten the note, you know my apologies ahead of time, blame me. But back to the comments. You know, I was up early this morning. I'm just going to speak from the heart, if you don't mind, for just a few minutes. And thinking, boy, these comments that Roy helped me with a few weeks ago really were good on January 5th. And they were even good on January 6th, when I was in Washington, D.C. on behalf of TPPF. For the record, I would have gone to the National Mall, the peaceful part of this rally. There's nothing wrong with that. Be really clear, some of you were there, and I'm glad you were. But I was there with my TPPF hat on, which meant I was in our office near all of that. And all of that was good, by the way, up until the afternoon. And I was there hiring, along with some colleagues, a top-notch person from the Trump administration that I hope we're still able to get. And someone you don't know, there's someone we do know who's coming back. But we'll talk about that another day. Yes? The world's watching. I have to be so careful with what I say. But that aside, the point is TPPF is going to continue charging hills. We are dismayed by the fact that several dozen fellow Americans decided to storm the Capitol. And that's what it was. And I can find no excuse for what they did. But I also can find no excuse for the same people condemning the millions of people who are part of this movement when the left was burning your businesses in my capital city. This is inexcusable. And so it's time we call a spade a spade. But I have to say, the way forward is what TPPF does. In my weaker moments, I get really irritated by that dichotomy. But what I also know is that conservatism is an optimistic movement. Think about Reagan. Think about the policy achievements of Donald Trump. We should not forsake those because they are part of who we are and they have improved our lives. All of that can be true, and we can still wish that fellow Americans never again storm the Capitol. So, thank you. It's custom at TPPF that this first comment, and for years made by our wonderful friend and longtime leader, Brooke Rollins, and the last few years me, is about our legislative agenda and what we want to accomplish. I'm just going to assume that you're going to hear that over the next few days. And so my comment, last one really, is general, and that is, now is the time to be prayerful. Because as you know, I'm a historian of this country, and so I know that there have been low points in this country's history. And some of them have been more challenging than what we're living through today. But I would also have to say, to call a spade, that there hasn't been a time in American history, even considering those challenging episodes, when what's assaulted is our intellect, our freedom to think the way we want to think, the very definition of what a human person or the two genders are. These are really challenging times. And yet I'm optimistic for a whole bunch of reasons, not the least of which is I woke up today in Texas. And the point is this century is going to be the Texas century. We've said for years that as Texas goes, so goes America. And guess what? Texas is going well, all things considered. And I think the spirit of Texas is the salve for the wounds of this very wounded country. I am not being Pollyannish. I hate, in fact, I deplore empty optimism because it sends people down paths that are really kind of waste of time. So what you're hearing from me is a charge, starting with me and all of us at TPPF, but a commitment by the Texas Public Policy Foundation that we'll continue to call a spade a spade. I think we'll be able to tell you in a couple weeks how many people from Antifa and BLM were in the Capitol. Some, but the majority were people who were Trump people. That doesn't mean that the media is right, that they should be excoriating the rest of us, or that big tech should be suppressing conservative voices. But you know, I spent a long time as a conservative Christian in academia, and I can tell you that what happened over the last few days by big tech toward us has been what they've been doing for almost a century. And so the point is, the solution to that is to embrace the Texas ideal. We have people moving every day to the soil that is called Texas, but it's time they and we and others embrace the ideal of what Texas represents. Part of that is recognizing that in every moment of our country's and state's history, every moment that's been very challenging, Philadelphia in 1776, Washington on the Brazos in 1836, 1914, 1918, 1941, 1945, Ronald Reagan telling Gorbachev, tear down that wall in 1989, 2001, heck, 2020. We've risen to the occasion. I, like you, am dismayed by the state of civil society in this country. But I am inspired by the lessons and examples of those who came before us. And what I can tell you with 100% commitment by our board, my colleagues at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, we're not giving up on this state or this country today or any day. And we can recognize that what happened last week at the Capitol is reprehensible, and also recognize we're still charging every hill that needs to be charged. Do not mistake that. I love speaking in military metaphors because I am a military historian, but I'm told it's politically incorrect. And so I am going to nod to that, mostly hoping for a laugh, but also because we can tell that story better through video. And you know that TPPF has embraced its new role, in addition to being a policy think tank and a litigation center, of being an institution of civil society that tries to keep Texas Texan. That starts with embracing our history, and it is on that point that I will turn to episode 1 of our new Texas history series, Forging Texas. Please enjoy.
Under the leadership of General Santa Anna, the government of Mexico was transformed into a military dictatorship, ignoring their Constitution of 1824. Those who rebelled were brutally pillaged and victimized. It is now September 1835 in the small town of Gonzales, Texas, an area granted to American colonists by Mexico Under the condition they abide by Mexican law, the very law that granted them liberties, the law Santa Anna now aims to destroy.
This is our home.
There's little enough keeping us here. We've got no property, no family this side of the border neither. There are plenty of doctors that can assist far north from here.
You can't let fear of one man drive us out.
You remember Stephen Austin? Santa Ana, he has no intention of reasoning with the Texians. If he gets word of anybody who disagrees. I hear a lot of folk grumbling around here. I'm not gonna stay to see what the general makes of it.
This is our home.
We're not from here. Stay.
You Edwin Crawley?
Mr. Moore, can I help you, sir? Please come in.
On the tape. Let's get him on the tape. Beg your pardon, ma'am.
Who's the boy?
Jesse McCoy. We did what we could to stop the bleeding. Damn near crushed his skull.
Doc Smithers.
We were advised to see you in place of Doc Smithers.
I'll do what I can, Mr. Moore. I'll need some help.
Ben, give him a
There,
hand.
near the stove. There, right there. There's the rag near the stove. Grab the whiskey on the top shelf. Soak it well. I'll need to check the head wound. I need to check the head wound and check for any fracture, and then I'll need a needle and thread. What happened, boys?
Them that did this are still out there, John. Me and Walter, we'll go get them. You just say the word.
What happened?
Whited by the butt of a brown bass.
By Mexican soldiers.
One Mexican soldier.
With no provocation.
One Mexican soldier, probably rogue. Don't make assumptions and make a bad situation worse.
This has been coming on a long time, James. You and I both know that.
It's all right.
Most of the town
It's all right.
is witness to this bad business.
No, James is right.
Agree?
We should wait. We should appeal to the alcalde. I mean, make some justice here. We can't just take matters into our own hands.
Justice? What about Zacatecas? What about Stephen Austin in prison?
We all came here willingly, Simeon. We all know the terms of the land we own.
Press this here. Sorry about that.
We
Breathe, Jesse,
promise
breathe.
to live peaceably under
Sorry.
the Constitution that we all swore an oath to.
Simeon's right. Santa Anna's proved
You're doing great, Jesse.
he has no regard for the old law.
Doing great.
He only enforces it at his convenience.
That's right.
How can you say that, James? We need the Mexican troops. We ain't soldiers, except for John here. We're ranchers and the like, and the Comanches still raid west of Laredo. Sometimes nearer.
They gave us protection, yes.
He's gonna be all right.
Yet now they've asked for its return. Colonel Ugar de Kea wants us to return the cannon.
No.
He's seeking an order from Santa Anna to enforce its surrender. How does he expect us to defend ourselves? Truth be told, Ben, I don't believe he wants us to.
Suppose we gave it back. It being a gift and all. Surely he'd garrison some troops.
Where will it end? My father fought the war for America, as many of yours did. Has such a memory faded so quickly? Now I must speak as a mother. If you were to ask me this day to give up my only son in the hopes that his death would in some way ensure this country's promised freedoms from tyranny, I would do so. And do not mistake, sirs, that proposition as cowardly. A man cannot understand how much more a mother values the life of her child than her own. For his life to be without liberty is not one at all. You speak of arms. I speak of principles. I came here on a promise, and I intend to defend it.
What's this child's name, ma'am?
Thomas.
Thomas. If all men were raised by mothers like yours, Thomas, very foundations of hell would quake. Where y'all from, ma'am?
Here, sir. We're Texians.
Santa Anna has asked us to return his cannon. He would withdraw the protection that he owes to us as his constituents. And in my eyes, that makes us constituents no more. Let us give him a proper response.
On October 2nd, under the command of now Colonel John H. Moore, the settlers of Gonzales flew their flag boldly and defiantly into battle against nearby Mexican troops. This decision, they felt, was the spark needed to encourage all Texians and Tejanos to resist the increasingly oppressive Mexican dictatorship. It was the spark indeed that would ignite the fire for the Texas Revolution.
Thank you. We're very proud of that because I think the more we can tell stories about the Texas ideal, the more optimistic we should be about America's future. And permit me just a moment to say that that's done entirely in-house. Some actors who are in need of employment during COVID here in the Austin area, of course, very happy to be part of that. We're grateful for their wonderful work. But most of all, for the executive producer, our full-time colleague, Stephen Robinson, for putting this together. Stephen, congratulations. I used to think that policy making and hiring lawyers and running Facebook ads was expensive, and then I met Stephen and learned, as a couple of you know, filmmaking is very expensive. It's very important to do that level of investment for a high quality product, and so thank you to those of you who've made this possible. There are 9 more episodes in the works. They will get to directly millions of Texas school children, but also, we hope, every Texan here and those who want to move here. So thanks for making it possible. Thank you. Every generation of Texans is composed of men and women like you, and men and women like the great folks in elective office who take the hard votes, who charge hills. And of all of the Texas elected leaders, especially those of the last 20 or 30 years, there are a handful who really stand out, and we are so privileged today to have one of them with us, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Dan Patrick was first elected Lieutenant Governor of Texas in 2014, re-elected in 2018. You know him as being very committed to reducing taxes, limiting government spending, promoting border security, protecting life, the family, the Second Amendment, and education reforms, among others. Most of all, Dan would like to be known as a successful small businessman and radio host, along with the fact that he and his wife Jan have been married for 45 years. They have 2 children and 6 grandchildren. Please join me in welcoming the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Dan Patrick.
See you.
Good to see you,
Thank you
sir.
very much.
Good to see you.
Great to be here.
Well, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, what a start to 2021. So you know that as you get comfortable in your seat there, you know that this group of a couple hundred folks and a couple thousand online are looking to you to remind us what true North is. So I know you well enough to know you're up to the task.
We're ready. And I think we have some of our senators here today you already introduced.
Yes, indeed.
So we're ready. In fact, we're on the floor at 1:30 today to vote on the rules. And
Is that your way of saying, Kevin, ask really short questions?
Yes, we'll be good. So no, we are at a time that all of you know, if not the darkest time in history of our country, surely in modern times. And I wrote a missive. I think you put it out on the table.
On the table, yes, sir.
Enough this week. I was on Laura Ingraham last night talking about it, and we'll be doing some more media on it. And what was on my heart since last Wednesday was enough of the hypocrisy on all sides, but particularly the Democrats and the mainstream media, and enough that we have to recognize issues as well.
Sure.
I'm actually, and what's happened, Kevin, is people have been sending me their enoughs. So in other words, someone comes up with an idea, well, enough of this. And I keep getting them. It's like Chuck Norris jokes. You know, there's always one more. Chuck's favorite, by the way, I asked him once, he's been, Chuck Norris is a great Republican, big supporter of the governor, myself, and he actually supported me back in 2007 when I ran for the Senate. And so Chuck's favorite joke is, when the boogeyman goes to bed at night, he keeps the light on because he's afraid Chuck Norris is in the closet. That's his best line. And also now, we have another new enough. I've just about had enough of corporate America saying they're going to divest themselves from the oil and gas industry and from supporting Republicans. I've had enough. I mean, actually, we might have to pick a new place to be next year. I mean, AT&T says they're not supporting Republicans anymore.
Yep.
We could go to the Marriott, but they've announced they're not supporting Republicans anymore. And Wells Fargo and Dow and American Express, I've been a customer since '84. I guess now I can leave home without it. Blue Cross and Blue Shield, they are the insurers of state employees. They're not going to support Republicans anymore. And one I found really interesting, I just had to share with you. Let me get to it very quickly. Of all companies, Hallmark announced they're not supporting Republicans anymore. So they told Josh Hawley, the 2-year senator from Missouri, they want their PAC check back. So I'm wondering how they notified him. I assume they sent him a card. I have it here. Wishing you no more years in office, Josh. We want back our money. We're backing a liberal next time, and we're not being funny. Hallmark, when you care enough to send the best. But this is a serious issue that we face. Not just as a conservative moment, but since so many of our conservatives, I better put my American Express card back in my
I was just about to
cross in my
suggest that, Governor
pocket.
Patrick.
Is that we're seeing a time that has happened so quickly that our rights are being taken away, particularly our freedom of speech. People are being punished just because they worked with Trump, can't get a job somewhere. We're being thrown off Twitter and Facebook. This is what happens in communist China. This is not what happens in America. And when you have the media and corporate America link up with one party, then the rights of all Americans and their voices will not be heard. And like in China, where the people don't even know what's going on in the outside world, then in America, Americans won't know what's going on unless they listen to one or two talk radio stations or Fox News, and even Fox is getting a little shaky. And talk radio, by the way, Cumulus, which owns 416 radio stations in the country and carries a lot of conservative talk radio show hosts, said that if any of these radio show hosts talk about election fraud, they will be fired. Now, I've been in television and radio most of my life, and it's when your job's on the line and the boss tells you don't talk about a subject or we'll cancel your contract, you take that seriously. I mean, that's why I bought a radio station, so no one ever could tell me what I could or couldn't say. And I don't tell my host what to say. But I want you to think about that. They want to shut us down. And on my enough list that I don't know if you read, and tell me when we need to wrap up the next question. I don't want to go too long.
Oh, you're on a roll. Keep going.
And by the way, we know the election was hijacked. There is no question. I want to say to the TV cameras, the election was hijacked. There is no question. At hashtag, we must save our Constitution and our democracy and follow the facts. In fact, if you think the election was hijacked, there is no question. Stand up with me. Now, for the TV cameras and the news media here, I just want to let you know that we all stood up for what Nancy Pelosi said in May of 2017. When Nancy Pelosi said those words, the election was hijacked, there is no question, we must save democracy and follow the facts. And Twitter did not cancel her, and American Express did not cancel her, and nor did AT&T or did Marietta, anybody. So media, you all can sit now. Did you ever think you'd ever stand up for something Nancy Pelosi said? My point is, it's the double standard. The double standard. And that's what I put in enough. Enough that the protesters that took over the Capitol, for example, last week, weren't Trump people. I knew instantly they were Trump people because Antifa covers their face with a mask. These people were posing for photos. And so we have to admit they were Trump people. Enough of saying it's Antifa. It's not true. But we also have to say enough of the Democrats who have amnesia, who are focusing on this terrible act that happened when for all of the summer and fall, they burned down police stations and offices and looted and shot police, and no one said a dang word about it. Enough. And that's what all the enoughs began. And at the end, I said the president. He didn't, enough. He didn't call out the people to go riot and attack police, but he didn't lower the temperature at the moment. To be honest, you have to own it. And I said on Laura last night, there's a phrase that I heard recently that I love. Leaders are not supposed to create crisis. We're supposed to calm them. Governor Abbott and I think the Republicans have done a very good job. We've calmed the crisis of all of the domestic shootings we've had in Texas since we've been in office, at a church, at a school, in El Paso, in Odessa. We've calmed the crisis of hurricanes. That's what leaders do. You calm the crisis, not create them. That's not what the Democrats are doing today. And enough of this attack on all Trump supporters. I know most of you in this room, I recognize many of you. Some of you I just can't see in the lights. You're not going to attack police. You're not going to steal anything. You're not going to go loot anything. 99% of the Trump supporters in America, those 75 million people who voted, are hardworking, patriotic, God-fearing Americans. Enough. And I said at the end of this, we won't go through any more of it, but I said at the end of it, and you can read it, is that I'm going to pray for Joe Biden. I'm not going to agree with anything he says. I didn't agree with anything that Obama said. But once the election is over, that's our president. That's our president. I'm going to pray that God gives him wisdom not to listen to the crazies on the left. But if people in this country had not been ruthlessly and relentlessly attacking the president and praying for him the last 4 years, maybe we all wouldn't be where we are. We've become a coarse society. What is said on social media, on Twitter, and on Facebook, it's just awful. And it plays itself out. And so, if we don't put God back in the... I thought about this morning. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. I called Rick Perry at 6:30, and we talked for an hour. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. I'm thinking about this, Kevin. This didn't begin even in the last 4 years of the relentless attacks on Trump, when Nancy Pelosi said the election was hijacked, there is no question. It really began at the end, I believe, of the George Bush presidency, when they went after him in 2005, when Barbara Boxer and 30 other senators did what Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley were doing. They stood up to reject the election in Ohio for the president, President Bush. And that's why Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley shouldn't resign. And they weren't implicit in those riots.
Not at all.
But that's what happened in so you put all this together. I always look, if you look at history, it's a moment in time, it's technology that seemed to come together. So what happened in 2008 and 2009 when Bush was leaving and they were doing those attacks? What's happened in the last 11 years? The advent of Facebook and the advent of Twitter and the power to the corporations. And we went through the Obama years and then the Trump years, and hatred has been building, divisiveness has been building. We won't survive. If we're going to be a country for the next every presidential election, Kevin, and whoever wins, the other side's just going to hate them and tear them apart, we're not going to make it.
Yeah, and what I might submit too, Governor Patrick, is in addition to your excellent diagnosis, which I agree with, not saying that just because you're sitting here, we at TPBF agree with your diagnosis, is that in addition to all of that technological difficulty, we have decades now of teaching American students not just to not love this country, but to hate it actively. Right. And so I'm curious and of course you can keep diagnosing and making the news as you like to do at our event, fine with me, but I want to swerve into the policy lane.
Sure.
If you don't mind. And whether you want to comment on efforts that the legislature could take to improve the instruction of civics and American history in Texas, maybe starting at my alma mater, this university, but also K through 12 schools, because coming from, as you know, a family of teachers, it's not an anti-teacher comment, I love teachers as you do. We have teachers who have been formed and trained in that environment, and we're not going to be able to sustain an optimistic future for this country if we can't first teach our kids to love it. What are we going to do about it?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely right, Kevin. Back when I was a senator, there was a bill that passed in forgive me, it's been 8 years now almost, or 6 years. Back in some time ago, I think in the 50s or 60s, there was a bill passed that said you had to teach American history and Texas history so many semesters in college, as well as in our K through 12. And boy, I hope I'm not wrong on this. I don't want to give the wrong House member credit or not give the right one credit. I think it was Craig Goldman was the House sponsor, and I was Senate sponsor, to require our universities to do that. Mm-hmm. because they're not following the law. They're not teaching the semesters that's in the law of American history and Texas history. At Texas Tech, I love that university, but they have a fine Western culture program that Chancellor Hance put together, and donors fund it, and they're kind of walking back. I'm just going to tell the truth here.
Sure.
I'm just going to tell the truth. And if we don't get a hold of our universities, and remember, folks, you're in Texas with a great University of Texas and a great University of Texas A&M and Texas Tech, and I mean, great universities. Imagine if you were in a blue state. And the fact that we have to fight that here. So, but it starts even before that. And I have 6 grandkids. They're all under 9. Some of them are started school already. Some of them are being homeschooled. And I look at their work. It's anti-corporation already in elementary school in all their projects. I mean, you just see the message. I watch some of these cartoons, and it's amazing. There was I think it's called Pinkalicious or something. I don't know the name of the show. And I'm watching it with my granddaughter, who's 6. And it was about, I'm not protesting. It was about a right to protest against this evil company that was going to put up a building where a park was. And the protester, who's one of the 5 characters, I forget his name, Alex, has a hood, okay? He gets fireworks to throw. He climbs up on this building, creates a lot of damage. This is a cartoon for 5 or 6-year-olds. Pink Delicious or whatever it is, or whatever it's called.
Sorry, I can't help you there. I'm trying.
And at the end, he's arrested, but the officer says, it's okay, you didn't really hurt anything. You were justified to protest this evil corporation. That's what we're teaching 6-year-olds on cable television.
Yeah, the same thing's happening with the civics courses. Our colleague Tom Lindsay at TPPF has analyzed this a lot, that rather than teaching civics, as all of us understand it, they're teaching civic engagement, which sounds very sweet, but it's really the kind of thing that you've just described. So let's talk about another problem which you mentioned. You inspired us to
And real quick,
just
real quick, I went and fought the Alamo this year, but at the Texas Historic Commission, because there was a cancel culture San Antonio councilman who wanted to erase Texas history, who literally said, and I use this in the testimony, who said, everyone knows the mythology of the Alamo, it's wrong, and it's bunk. They wanted to move the cenotaph, which we saved. They wanted to erase the story of the Alamo so that it never happened. And we had to, and I thank the Texas Historic Commission for voting with me 11-0, because it was a hard fight. That's right here.
That's right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. At the birthplace of Texas, or one of the birthplaces of Texas. So, related point, although switching policy arenas a bit, I want to return to the comment you made about election fraud. Yeah. We're not even supposed to use that phrase, but you know, at TPPF, we're just going to call a spade a spade.
Hey, if Nancy said it, we're all free.
Yeah, I'll agree in this case, Governor Patrick. So the point is that a year ago in this building, some people in this room and our board got together and said, we're going to commence the election protection project at TPPF because we know there's ballot harvesting. We were already concerned about mail-in ballots in other states. We had no idea what was to come. The point is, I don't understand how whether someone is liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican, that they do not want to ensure that we have the safest, fairest, most transparent election system in the world. How can we get to that in Texas this legislative session?
So first of all, and you'll notice I got my Alamo in my boots here.
I noticed.
And the Capitol on the other. I told Rick Perry this morning, I know I'm from Baltimore and he's from Payne Creek, but I finally have a better pair of boots than he does. But,
well done.
So thanks to Ken Paxton, our Attorney General, you have to understand what happened in Georgia and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Arizona. They wanted to have happen here. We had to go to court 12 times last year, to the Texas Supreme Court or to the Fifth Circuit, and we won every time. Because Harris, I'll tell you a little backstory. When we got the CARES Act money, this is the first time this has ever happened. Normally, when the federal government sends state money, they send it to the, we distribute it. But they never send it directly to cities and counties, unless it's a disaster. And FEMA will send a little bit of money. Maybe if it's a small town, $20,000 to clean up the trash immediately, or $100,000 if it's a bigger town. But when it comes to the big dollars, they have to turn in receipts and verify that it was storm cleanup, and then FEMA will pay the bill. But what Congress did, and I blame the Republicans, like we're not perfect, I blame the Republicans in Washington for going along with this. They sent every county and every city in America with 500,000 people or more a direct check. In Texas, they sent $3.2 billion to 12 counties and 6 cities that are over 500,000 people. And in Harris County, Lena Hidalgo, the new county judge, she immediately said, I'm going to take millions of dollars and send a mail-in ballot to every one of the 2.5 million voters. So I saw this, and I called the Trump campaign. I couldn't get anyone to listen. I said, this is going to be repeated everywhere. So I finally, and I don't call the White House often, but I called, and the president called me back, and I said, Mr. President, they are going to take this election from you through mail-in ballots using federal money to do this. And that's exactly what happened. We stopped it in Texas. They would have done it. Now, he would have still won Texas. He won by 700,000 votes. But the margins would have been less. And when you say, well, why wouldn't everybody want that? You would think. But if you don't think you can beat me, you want to get as many ballots in as you can. Because it's the means that leads to an end. You want to win. So you can justify in your mind that my policies as a conservative are so bad and so harmful, and we don't care about the poor. I mean, we know all of these things are lies, but the other side actually believes that you all are really bad, that our policies are evil. So I said this in an interview one time. It was not received very well, but it's the truth. Any party that will stand behind killing 46 million babies, stealing a few votes is nothing. I mean, that's harsh. True. So that's why, Kevin.
Yeah, well, I knew you'd answer the question.
Yeah.
So can we, and I know you're someone, and you're very gifted this way, which I mean honestly, Governor Patrick, who will diagnose a problem, however ugly the truth may be, but you also want to be focused on solutions. You want to give us some reason for optimism. And so I'm going to come back to the question. Yesterday was the first day of the legislative session.
Yes.
What are we going to do about it? How are we going to keep Texas, Texas? What can these folks who are here in person, thousands of people tuning in who share your concern, we want to go charge the hill. What are we charging?
In 20 seconds to clean up my last answer, not clean up, but add something. I'm not saying, because I don't know if what happened in the mail-in ballots in all those areas would have changed the election. Nobody knows. But the president and Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and all of us have a right to be suspicious when people act suspicious when they're counting the votes in the middle of the night and not letting anyone see, and when they will not verify signatures. So I'm not in the camp that says, yes, it was stolen. I don't know. But I know when you don't verify signatures and you have millions of mail-in ballots, you're going to have a lot that you would throw out for Trump, for them. So the Democrats brought this on themselves. So that's the answer on that. So what are we going to do? Well, okay, the first thing, the 18-vote rule. The 19-vote rule, the 21-vote rule. When I got elected to the Senate, and I think all of you know this story, I'll be real quick. When I got elected to the Senate, there was a 21-vote rule. You had to have 21 votes to bring a bill to the floor. You only need 16 to pass it. We never had more than 20 Republican senators. Back in the 90s, we only had 3. But when I came in 2007, we had 20. The vote was, you had to have 21 votes to bring a bill to the floor. Guess what? We could not bring a bill to the floor unless a Democrat agreed with us. So in essence, we had 20 of the 31 senators, and the 11, the blocker bill, could block anything we wanted to do. And so on day one, as a freshman senator, I stood up and said, we need to change the rules. I lost 30-1. It took me, I'm a dog with a bone. It took me 17 years to get property tax reform passed, and we did it last session. And I think if you look at your property tax bills, because we're not able to cut something we don't tax, but we've leveled them out. They're not going up 7%, 8%, 9% anymore every year on your appraisals. It's going to be 1%, 2%, 3%, which is tremendous savings moving forward. That was a Herculean effort. And we did that for 17 years. But on the 21 vote rule, it took me to run for lieutenant governor and get it done. So in 2015, and by the way, each session I would fight it, I chipped away. I was up to 10 votes. See, the senators will vote on the rules today, like they always do the first or second day. It's 31 senators, simple majority, 16 members to change the rules. So I'd gotten up to 10 members to vote with me to change the 21 vote rule to 19. And thank goodness we had 8 freshmen come in with me in 2014. The seniors agreed, and we changed it to 19. That's why in the last 3 sessions, we've had the most 3 conservative sessions in the history of any state anywhere. And it's why, quite frankly, one of the reasons Joe Strauss left, because we put a lot of pressure on him. We sent a lot of conservative bills over there. And we wouldn't have been able to do that with the 21 vote rule, because they'd have blocked everything. So now we lost Pete Flores, just barely. 10,000 votes. He lost 40,000 votes 4 years ago. We won the special, then he lost by 10,000. By the way, the Libertarian guy on the ticket got 11,000 votes. But anyway, we lost. So I got 18 members. So I said to the members, I said to the media, we need to change the rule to 18. And people said, why? Because we're the majority. Elections matter. And so it's going to be 16, a simple majority, plus 2. And they said, well, that's just political. I said, yes, we're the majority. Okay? If we don't change the rule today, then we would have 18. The rule is 19. We're the majority party. We're the majority in the House. We have all the statewide, but the Democrats would be controlling the Senate because there's 13 of them. So I'm hopeful today that our senators vote on the rules, and I only have 18 Republicans. I need 16 votes. I never count them until it's over, but I'm hoping they do that. And there was an article, so that's what we're doing. We can't do anything you want us to do. We can't do anything you want us to do if we don't change the rule. Anything that's important, conservative bills will be blocked. Gun bills, life bills, tax bills, they'll be blocked. So we have to do it. That's what you elected us to do. And so there was this editorial written by 4 senators, Bill Ratliff, Bob Dole, David Sibley, and Craig Estes. Wrote an editorial that Dan Patrick wants to take the easy way out. And we shouldn't change the 18-vote rule. The first thing they said that was untrue is they said weak for conservatives. They were not conservative. Okay? Bob Dole got beat by Bob Hall. Bob's conservative. Okay? David Sibley was defeated by Brian Birdwell. He's conservative. Craig Estes was defeated by Pat Fallon. He's conservative. And now moved off to Congress. And Bill Ratliff, calling himself a conservative, he was interim lieutenant governor when Perry became governor and they had an interim lieutenant governor. Yeah, he won by 1 vote. And Rodney Ellis, the most liberal Democrat on the floor, became finance chair. He's a conservative? Sounds like someone is voting for somebody. I'm just saying, I'm calling them out. And here's the phony baloney things I hate about the mushy middle of our party. The truth was, a lot of Republicans liked the old 21 vote rule. You know why? Because they could come home and tell their conservative base, I wanted to vote for that bill. I'm for you. But procedurally, I couldn't do it. When in truth, they didn't want to vote for it. So when they say, I've taken the easy way out, look, last session I had 19. To pass a conservative bill, you know what that meant? The pressure was on me because I had to get all 19 members, Republicans, to agree. I put the pressure on my shoulders because if it had been 21, I could have said, hey, sorry, you all elected me. I wanted to try. I tried. So now, when we go to 18, if we do, I pray that we do. If we go to 18, so we can do your business. If we go to 18, it's all on my shoulders because I only have 18 members. So it doesn't make it easy. These four people, first weren't conservative, don't know what they're talking about. And so I want you to all understand, because you all have a big megaphone. You got to help explain it to the folks sometimes. So we'll see. But that's the key.
And you're leaving from this stage momentarily to go gavel in shortly. So I'll ask you the final question. Of course, I'd be happy to stay with you all afternoon, as I know our audience would, but we need to let you go do the people's business. Last question is a question of taking a step back. We started, both in my comments earlier and your comments, with, I think, accurate statements about where we are as a country, as a people. And also know you, Lieutenant Governor, to be someone who wants to give us reason for hope, reason for optimism. And so for these folks who are about to embark on a 3-day journey of policy and ideas, but they want to go home Friday afternoon knowing exactly what the action items are to keep Texas, Texas, how would you encourage us?
I don't want to take the easy way out and say it's in God's hands. That's what Christians do sometimes. It is in God's hands. I really, Proverbs 3, 5, 6, don't lean on your own understanding, but always trust God. God's at work here, Kevin. I don't understand. I don't understand how we didn't get a few more votes in Georgia to keep Purdue. I don't understand, look, President Trump, whatever happened at the end here when he didn't calm the crisis, again, he didn't call on the riots, but he shouldn't be going through impeachment here. This is disgraceful. But he was a great president. He's the most conservative president in the history of the country. And so you say where there's hope. If he had lost 65-35, which would have meant our conservative principles and values were then not popular, then I'd say, boy, we have a problem. We got to rebuild the party. When I said, when I see Mitch McConnell say, I sent a note to one of the Trump family members today, one of the children, and I said, you know what? And that's why I said on Laura, when you're somebody's friend, you stand with them. You counsel them if you think they're off course, and you're honest with them, but you stand with them. All these phony, baloney people in Washington who Trump helped get elected, and they've turned on him. Okay, just go to him and say, Mr. President, we don't agree with you, but don't turn on you. And so here's the good news, Kevin. We're not like a football team that suddenly went from a champion to only winning 4 games. We had 75 million voters who said, we want a secure border, we want smaller government, we want lower taxes, we don't want to be going to war all over the world. We want to be number one. It's good to make America great and put us first. So the good news is there's 75 million people out there ready to come back in 22 and take the House and send it back, hopefully, or in 24, take the White House back. So first of all, you start with that. We have a base, but we've got to find the leaders, conservative leaders, who will also be able to express themselves in a way to continue to attract other people to know that we as conservatives really care about them. I told the Senate yesterday, we had a meeting, there are 5 words. Do I care about you? If I'm in office and I don't demonstrate by my actions and my words that I care about you, why should you care about me? So we have to be sure that our conservative policies and values and principles and all those issues, we demonstrate to people that we care about them. And I didn't know Donald. I was Ted Cruz's campaign chair before he was out, and I became Trump's guy. And we've become great friends over, I don't say that to brag, we just have become great friends. Sure. We've talked 6 times since the election, I think. And the one thing I know in my heart, he cares about people. He wanted to lift everybody up. I've done 25, 30 events with him. I know he cared about America. And the way he was treated by the mainstream media and the Democrats is just so despicable. So
That's
our hope
truly
is,
deplorable. Yeah.
It was deplorable. They were the deplorables.
That's right.
So our hope is we have the base. We need messengers. We need fighters. We have to stand up for ourselves. I kind of kid at these corporations. I think they'll come around. I mean, like, is Cody Campbell here? Cody? Cody somewhere? I don't know if he's...
Cody couldn't make it.
Okay.
But
anyway,
he's watching online.
Cody Campbell on your board, he came to me with a bill. It's going to be one of my priority bills because we need to send a message to the investment companies and the brokerage companies in New York that if you're going to say you're not going to fund and you're going to punish the oil and gas industry, we as the state of Texas are not going to put any of our funds with your companies. All right? We did that with the anti-BDS bill. We did that with Israel. If we can do that for Israel, we can do that for Texas. We got to start standing up and having serious discussions with people. Look, there's just a lot of knee-jerk overreaction. All these, AT&T's been a strong supporter of mine and the Republicans and this group. But don't turn around and say, well, we're not going to fund the, okay, and they say, well, we're not going to fund those 100 and some Republicans who are going to, vote to. Don't they have it's not like they did anything wrong. They just stood up for what they believed. I mean, I can see if a company says, well, I'm not going to support you anymore, you're undermining my company. Actually, they now want to go support the people who really do want to undermine their companies and raise corporate taxes and go down the line.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. So we just have to go down and sit down with them and visit with them. And I'm just grateful and blessed to be here. But the reason I wrote that enough was because I just felt like somebody had to speak up and say something. And I didn't know how it was going to be received. Mm-hmm. I thought maybe some of the Trump people wouldn't like it. The other side wouldn't like it. I just said, I got to say what I have to say. And I think it's been received very well. And we're going to be in the fight. We are now the 9th largest economy. Do you know, real quick, the United States GDP is 21 trillion. Number 2 is China at 14 trillion. Number 3 drops all the way to Japan is 5. 4 is Germany. 5 is India. Do you know now our GDP is almost $2 trillion? We are now 8th in the world. Texas. And these fine senators are here today, and the fine House members are here today. There's 31 in the Senate, 150 in the House, and our 19 Republicans, or 18 Republicans. We get a chance to represent the greatest place to live. We are the 8th largest country in the world. That's why I have hope. Texas must lead. We will lead. And we'll do it in a respectful but passionate way of the things we believe in. And I'm very optimistic. President Trump flipped 7 counties in the Valley, Hispanic counties. One of the counties, he lost 80-20 to Hillary in 2016. He lost it 51-49 this time.
A lot of reason for optimism.
A lot of reason for optimism. The Hispanic voters in America, they are pro-life. They are pro-job, pro-educational opportunities, pro-Second Amendment, pro-family, pro-faith. So let the Democrats continue down this path of being not for choice but for abortion, for bigger government, higher taxes, for open borders. And those Hispanic voters will come to us in droves, and we must reach out and we must tell them who we are and ask for their vote and work every day. So thank you for having me. Thank you all for what you do. Look, this is TPPF, understand something, is the premier, foremost conservative organization on the face of the earth. Okay?
Thank you.
And by the way, and we don't always agree. Some of the members don't always agree with it, but we have great discussions, and we get to where we need to get. But you're being a donor, you're being a member. If we didn't have TPPF, I don't know where we would turn. I don't know where we would turn. There's a building full of trial lawyers down there that every bill is filed, they go through and put every poison pill they can get a point of order in the House. We don't allow point of orders in the Senate too much. But they get a lot in the House to kill everything they can kill. We rely on TPPF. Every member in here knows that, and I'm so appreciative of you supporting them, and many of you are my supporters. I appreciate. God bless you. God bless Texas, and we will be victorious because we are right, and I think God's on our side.
Governor
All right,
Patrick, thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you. Yeah, see you. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick never fails to disappoint. Also, never at a loss of words. See you, sir. Have a good afternoon. Thank you all for helping us get started off on a great foot. As I told you, this would be an energetic, optimistic looking forward. We are going to tell the truths, even those that aren't that fun to say, but we are going to do something about it. So, one logistical detail, if you haven't taken care of your parking voucher and you're going to be here more than 3 hours, you can head to the registration desk and our colleagues will take care of you there. We're going to start panels here at the bottom of the hour, and I think that you're in store for great panels this afternoon. Tomorrow, remember, breakfast with Wall Street Journal editor or opinion page writer Kimberly Strassel. I can tell you, speaking to Kim last week, she's also going to talk about the problems with election integrity. We'll have one of the great leaders in the United States, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, as our keynote luncheon speaker tomorrow. And we'll have a similar conversation with our very own Governor Greg Abbott tomorrow afternoon. So we're going to be setting the stage for some real exciting conversations, not just here in the ballroom, but in the panels. You'll have a great afternoon.